want it off?
Okay. We'll be starting in 1 minute. We'll be starting in 1 minute.
I did that.
I'm like, when I look it up, I'm like, that's funny. Good morning. Ooh. I didn't do anything.
It just logged out.
Okay. Coincidence that I touched it at the same time.
It just goes to sleep after a while. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Heck, don't go live yet, please. I have to get my cell phone.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, again, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I just have a few housekeeping items before we get started. If everyone could please silence your phones, don't turn them off, and we're going to make this presentation a little more interactive, so your phones will be the tool that we'll be using to communicate. There will be a few questions along the way, so keep them on, but on silence, please. Bathrooms are to your left through the double doors. And today's event is streamed live and live captioned. Go to floridabusiness.org and go to the media center, and there you'll find live captioning. There are question cards at each of your tables, so during the Q&A after the panel, you'll have a chance to be able to write your questions. Staff will come over and read your questions to the panel. And at this time, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge You may be seated. I'd like to take a moment to recognize some of our guests in the room in alphabetical order. Charlotte Gillis, Edgewater City Council member. Sean Gutford, Port Orange City Council member. Jake Johansson, Volusia County Council member. Jason Leslie, Ormond Beach Mayor. Nancy Miller, Daytona Beach Shores Mayor. Matt Reinhardt, Volusia County Council member. Will Roberts, Volusia County Tax Collector. Lisa Stafford, Orange City Council member. If I have missed any elected officials, please stand up to be recognized. Okay. So let me switch to. Today can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Today marks my 4th quarterly breakfast, which means that I have been here almost a year. It'll be 2 weeks from today that I will have been with the county a full year. And part of me showing, and my family showing appreciation, Jenny, my wife, and Lucas, my son, are here with us today. And, thank you. We're grateful for the opportunity to have this important role in our community with economic development, so we're really thankful. I'm also thankful to Brad, to Heather, Ricardi, and Tatiana, my fierce team. Together, we put together this event, and we work very hard to help businesses in the area grow and prosper. Yeah. There's a lot going on today. Happy Valentine's Day, first of all. We also have the races, and we have the Thunderbirds. So today at 8:30, they'll be taking off and doing kind of a flyby. So wherever we're at in the program, I'll make a quick pause. We're going to open the windows. You'll be able to see the jets fly. It gets loud. That's part of the reason why we kind of have to stop, but it's cool. Okay. The order of today's presentation I changed a little bit. I'll kick it off with talking about the permitting activity in the county. Then I'll segue into talking about the employment, and then we'll talk about innovation, which is today the topic for this Q breakfast, innovation in Volusia County. So with that said, I told you to keep your phones turned on. If you want to scan this QR code, you will have access to the presentation that let me get out of the way, that we'll be showing. So if the screens are too far away for you and you want to see it up close on your phone, you can follow the presentation. And I'm giving you an excuse to look at your phone, so you're welcome. All right, let's kick it off with the commercial construction permitting. I've always said that this graph is difficult to understand because quarterly activity in commercial permitting looks a little bit erratic when you look at it from a quarter-to-quarter perspective, maybe a little bit of a cycle. So I wanted to kind of break it down and change it a little bit so you can see it in a different perspective. Let me acknowledge the fact that there's a gigantic bar at the beginning, okay? And it looks like a lot was happening there and then a lot less. The thing is, that first year that we have on Q1 in 2022 includes a project, a big project that you drive by when you're going on 95 every day. It's Amazon, so it accounts for a good chunk of that bar. So if you were to remove that part, you can actually see a little bit more of the cycle that I'm talking about. And if anything, you can see that from 2023 to 2024, the commercial activity has increased. So if anything, commercial activity is stable and growing slightly. Let's see where that money is being invested. Like any growing community, we have to invest accordingly, in every aspect. So for example, in education or higher education institutions need more classrooms, need more dorms, and we see that investment reflected here in this quarter. The same way that the government is also investing in infrastructure for the community as we continue to grow. Think about fire stations, etc., that we all need as the community increases. And then we have multifamily housing, and let me pair that up with storage. These two things, at least in my mind, are they belong together. Imagine this scenario: someone moves into the area, they get into an apartment that was recently built, and some of their belongings have to go into storage. And in fact, if you look at 2024, about 50% of all the permitting activity that took place in the county is accounted for those two together. Now let's take a look at the residential permitting. For the first time, we can see a ever so slight trend down, but ever so slight, and it's easy to understand the justification for it. Think about your mortgage interest rates were high or continue to be high through 2024, and think about the value of our homes has increased. All our properties have increased in value, so the combination of those two things have led to a slight, very so slight decline in commercial permitting. Let's look at now at employment. Let me break down this graph for you. If you look at 2014, you see a trend that is growing with a specific pattern that we call the sawtooth. You can see this pattern that you can almost predict, and you can almost see where the year lays, every year. And it's been growing steadily until COVID hit. Ever since COVID hit, I'm glad to see that we had a great recovery, but that pattern has not been repeated again. And for the first time, we can see a slight decline in employment in the county, very so slightly. But let me tell you something. We have big projects coming to town. Think about Amazon, that big building that I referenced before. The building is there. They haven't hired yet. It's going to happen soon, and they're going to hire a ton of people. Think about Advent Health, new buildings. Think about Boeing, bringing about 1,000 high-paying jobs. Think about Aura Aero. That's a company, a French company that makes electric airplanes, bringing more than 1,000 jobs to the community. So add all those, and we're going to see a trend going up again in employment. And this is a time to recognize the great work that Team Volusia and the the CEO Business Alliance is doing for the community. Because those two entities are partly responsible for bringing some of those businesses that are bringing those jobs to the community. So it is great for our community to have resources like that helping us increase the employment in the area. Now let's take a look at where the employment is going to. Leading the pack, no surprise, healthcare. They're the industry that has added the most jobs. And I always say that the job of economic development, my team and I, our job is to make all these green bars solid across the board, because that would mean one thing. That means that we're adding jobs across every single kind of industry, making our community more resilient to economic changes. Think of us having more eggs in different baskets, okay? And if anything were to happen in one industry, we have others to keep us going. And also let me acknowledge that every single one of these bars, a portion of it is a small business or a startup. And I want to focus the conversation a little bit now on those small businesses and startups and the impact they have on employment. So let's take a look at first the businesses themselves. I want you to focus your attention on the blue box up here. This is the average number of new businesses that were created in the United States every month in 2024. 430,000 new businesses were created every month in the United States. Now look here in this green box, we have Florida at 52,800 new businesses on average every month. You don't need to be a mathematician to realize that 52 is a good chunk of 430, especially considering that you're one of 50 that contribute to that number. So one of 50, and we contribute a huge chunk. Now let's look at the bottom for comparison purposes, how the other states fare. So, and we picked all states with high population. Biggest population, California, still below us at 43,000. Texas, second biggest at 40,000. And if you want to compare apples to apples, New York has today roughly the same population as Florida, and even then we more than double their numbers. That's a big deal. What I want you to get out of this is that there's a lot of activity in Florida developing new businesses, and that is important to recognize because it dictates the future not only of the economy but also employment. So let's take a look at what's happening in terms of employment. How does it impact employment? You have two bars here. The left bar is pre-COVID, the right bar is post-COVID. On the left, in the past, startups and small businesses only accounted for a small portion of employment when you look at the whole, okay, compared to existing businesses. But since COVID, that has changed. Now, there are proportionally more jobs being generated by small businesses and startups than existing businesses. So is it important to pay attention to the small businesses and startups? Absolutely, because they account, since COVID, for 70% of all new jobs created. Really critical. So with that said, let's take a look at what's happening within Volusia County. The green bars on this chart represent the number of new businesses generated every year, okay? And the purple line is what we call high propensity businesses. A high propensity business is, let me explain it this way. You have a business, for example, think of a consulting company, and it's one person working from their home. They're unlikely to employ other people over time. They'll probably be by themselves working, maybe hire one person, compared to a doctor practice or compared to a restaurant. They're more likely to hire more people. That's a high propensity kind of business. So you can see here, what I want you to get from this is that the trend in both is growing. We have more businesses being created in Volusia County to the tune of 4,000, and many of those businesses, if not most, are high propensity businesses. We have to pay attention to this bar right here because the way I see it, we have a ton of baby businesses in Volusia County that need our help, and they're high propensity. And if we do things right, we're going to be very successful over the years. So, and let me add one more thing here. To be successful, you have to be ahead of the competition. You have to be innovative. And I want you to think of innovation not in terms of a thing, a widget that someone invented. Think of innovation also as a service, a new kind of service, or a new way of promoting your product, a new channel that you use to distribute your product, or think of a new business model. All those things are innovation. And to the extent your business has more of those components, to that extent, you're more likely to be successful. So let's segue the conversation into this innovation topic, and I'll do it with the help of your phones. I have a few trivia questions. If you scan this QR code, I don't know if they scanned already, they already see? Yeah, I think they already see what the questions will be. I'll give you one chance to, if you haven't done it yet, to scan the code. And I'll move on to the first question. What is the first step you should take when you come up with a business idea? And you have three choices: protect the idea, apply for a patent, develop a prototype, or validate the market. Just wait a moment. Let's see. The validate the market is definitely a strong. Okay, there's a clear trend right here, and I'm glad you're answering this way. Believe it or not, when I've asked this question to maybe a couple of thousand people in my lifetime, and usually these two tend to be a little stronger, and I guess people have gotten wiser as to the first step you need to take is understand if you have a market in the first place, because protecting an idea that you don't know you have a market for is a little bit insane, because a patent, and many people in this room will attest to this, will cost you a fortune, $10,000 at least, to get it off the ground. And so why spend that kind of money if you don't even know if you have a market? And the same thing for a prototype. Short of time travel and perpetual movement, I think we can pretty much make whatever we put our minds to. Whatever we can dream up. So yeah, validating the market is the way to go. Next question. How long does a standard US utility patent last from the date of filing? So when you get a utility patent, not a design patent, but a utility patent, 20 years. I like that. 10 years. Who splits the difference? 30 months. Okay, that's a specific time frame. I like how the word cloud. 20 is getting bigger. Who gives me more or less? The right answer here is 20 years. So whenever you get a utility patent, it's yours and you own the idea for 20 years. And then, how about this question? Which famous toy was invented by an engineer who was trying to develop a spring that could stabilize naval equipment? It's a word cloud as well. Slinky, really big. Different spellings, that's fine, but you're getting the same answer. The Slinky. And here's the cool thing about innovation. Sometimes innovation, you discover things by trying to doing something else. As I understand, for example, rubber came from penicillin. Someone was trying to invent that and stumbled upon, oh, here's the material. So creativity goes a long way when you make mistakes too. Monopoly, I love that one too. And the last question that I have is how many patents have been filed in Volusia County since the year 2000? It's a sliding bar, so I think you can adjust it to the number that you think is the correct one. Ooh, even split here. Someone said it. You kind of have the answer in front of you. All right, so let me move on. I won't give you the answer until we do this. So for those of you who said 1400, you were right. It's kind of cool. This chart right here shows you how many patents have been awarded every year in Volusia County. And yes, we took the time to go through the, well, not Heather specifically spent months going through, and we had this discussion like early on, like 3 months ago. It was like, do you have time to actually pull this off? Like, I will power through, and she did. And here you can see how many patents have been filed or granted every year. And I said granted because there's plenty more filings, of course. You know, for every patent that gets approved or filed, you know, you have to file several to get one granted. We're a community of innovators. You can see this clearly. We innovate in this community. And let's see where those innovations are going to. The USPTO, so the United States Patent and Trademark Office, has a classification system. So yes, you have trademarks, you have design patents, you have utility patents. Within utility patents, you have these categories that they created. The main one, the biggest one, being human necessities. Think about food, think about shelter, think about personal care, health care. Fairly broad, for that reason it's the biggest, but it also shows you the composition of our community. Think about Hawaiian Tropic, for example, in personal care. Then look at performing operations and transporting. Don't we make boats? Yeah, we make quite a few boats, and so Boston Whaler has quite a few patents under this. This gives you a snapshot of who we are as a community and what kinds of things we innovate. But I want you also to look at this information, this data, a slightly different way. If you can't tell, those are light bulbs. Each light bulb is one of the patents that was awarded in Volusia County since the year 2000. And yes, there's 1,401 light bulbs on this thing. One thing I learned putting this together is that once you add more than 1,000 icons to a single slide on PowerPoint, it crashes. So, yeah. Now, each one of these light bulbs tells a story of ingenuity, a story of challenge, facing a challenge and overcoming it, a story about grit. There's a lot going on behind each single light bulb, and look how many there are of them. And what I want to do now is I want to highlight 3 of these light bulbs. You can barely tell there's 3 light bulbs right here. I call these our hidden successes. So it's now time to bring up our panelists, and our 2 panelists. So yeah, this one change that I was just giving the heads up. One of our panelists could not make it, so we have 2 panelists, so turn off 1 light bulb. But it's only to highlight all the work that happens behind each light bulb, and for us as a community to reflect on supporting endeavors like this. So with that said, we're going to bring up our panel. So first I want to introduce, and I'm going to go off script here, and I'm not going to read the bios. We have Desiree Holler, who, this may be one of the ones you may recognize more easily. SubSafe, especially if you're into fishing, you will definitely recognize the brand. I don't know if you know this, but we have, and Desiree can correct me here, but I believe we have 2 people in our county who have been on Shark Tank. Because there's Chris on the west side of the county. Desiree was on Shark Tank, successfully on Shark Tank. She was invested by Mark Cuban and Charles Barkley, yeah. So, you know, phenomenal success story, and she has been growing her business here, and she went from 1 product to many more. I won't steal her thunder. I'll stop right there. So come on up, Desiree. Take your pick. And we have Tim Meadows, who, imagine that you work for a company for many years and you understand the industry well, and you discover an opportunity to do something that the company you work for is not quite capitalizing from, and you make a business out of it, and it's a business that it's a little more obscure. It's aloe concentrate, and it's sold to people who make either skin products or, and I'm butchering this, Tim, for sure, and sunblock. So Tim, come on up. So I'm going to turn this one off. That's what I think I heard. Any word on the Thunderbirds, Brad? Nothing? Okay. All right. You give me a signal and I'll.
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
I got it on dial. I'll give you a dial.
Is it live? Okay, I'm live. All right. So, sorry. I want to kick it off with a question that is always asked by Guy Raz. He is, I don't know if you recognize the name from How I Built This. The podcast always asks entrepreneurs the same question at the beginning, and that is your success attributed to luck or hard work?
So we already spoke about Shark Tank a little bit, so I think it's only fair that I say both. What you don't see, we were a very, very young company when we went on Shark Tank and auditioned. And so what transpired during the year between going on the show and getting the deal, and then the year later it actually airing, was a lot of hard work. But being on the show and having that, just that visibility was a lot of luck too.
Perfect, thank you. Tim?
Well, I think it's obviously hard work too, but it's also keeping your eyes open for opportunity, a break in the line and so forth. So keeping your eyes open, being aware of what's going on is just as important as luck and hard work.
True. Now, how did you come up with your idea? And more importantly, why did you act upon it? Because I think everyone in the room, at some point, we have all had ideas. And you probably have in your head right now more than one idea. But pulling the trigger on an idea is a whole different level. And I want to hear from you, again, how did you come up with it and why did you decide to pursue it? Desiree, you want to go first?
Going back to that question that you had on the screen, what is the first step? The market research is something that we went heavy on. And I do want to mention you have to be really careful, because if you have a good idea, you don't want to talk to everyone about it. So kind of, sign those NDAs. But my husband had an idea. We spent a lot of time fishing and on the boat, and he was just notorious for always wanting sub sandwiches out there. So it was initially his idea, and I was convinced that it already existed, and Tupperware, Rubbermaid had already created this product, and if they hadn't created it, they probably owned the patent on it. So we just started with some of the market research and started asking friends and family, if this existed, would you use it? And once we were receiving some of that good feedback, then we started the patent process.
Now, most times when someone comes to us with an idea, and Brad can attest to this, we usually go online and we'll find something very similar, and conversely, if we don't find anything, it's kind of scary, because then you ask yourself, do I even have a market, because if no one has made it, if Tupperware hasn't made it, there has to be a reason behind it. Did any of this go through your mind as you were considering the launch?
Absolutely. I'm very pessimistic. My husband is like the eternal optimist, and he's like, everyone's going to buy this product, and I'm like, are you sure? But no, what I ultimately went back to is that there is a sub shop on every single corner in our country, and so Americans are eating sub sandwiches specifically, and if we can just create a way to have it, make it portable in a market that was needed to be consumed on the spot, then that will create our customer. And it was more of an education process of like, oh, now you can put that in the break room, or now you can put that in a cooler. And it was, yeah.
Cool, thank you. Tim, how about you?
Well, let me see. Back in '85 or so, I had a new friend called from Dominican Republic, and we were just talking and hanging out, and he said, he said how old farmland he had. I said, what do you want to do with it? So he said, okay, well, you have any ideas? And so I had worked with aloe before. Mainly, aloe used to come from Texas only, And since the freeze of '83, the business has pretty much moved out of South Texas to the Rio Grande Valley. So they took a chance and they convinced them to plant some aloe in Dominican Republic. And from there, we started an aloe business. Basically, I originally started it just to have a good excuse to go down the islands, you know. but it slowly grew, and we started concentrated aloe because I thought of, you know, we concentrate orange juice, why not concentrate aloe vera? So we developed a relationship with a small privately owned orange juice company in Eustis. And we started actually treating aloe like orange juice in the concentration part. And then the bigger thing is that aloe is very photoreactive. You know, it turns color in the presence of light, UV light. And so one of my first jobs was at Calgon as a chemist and in activated carbon treatment. And so we applied that treatment to the aloe, and we got a color stabilized aloe vera. And that was like our first products. And since then, we've made all different forms like spray drying it and freeze drying it like that.
And Tim, when we had a conversation before, you told me that you were working at the moment at a Hawaiian Tropic. Right. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, they hired me from, when I started my first aloe company, it was a small, that orange juice. I joined up with the guys who owned that orange juice company. And then things didn't start working out after 4 years. So Hawaiian Tropic called me up and made me an offer to be head of R&D because my background was in photobiology. So, you know, at that time, the highest sunscreen they had was 15 SPF. So they needed to get into the high SPF market. And so since I had experience in that, and that's when I started there as technical director for sunscreens.
Okay. Now, the journey of an entrepreneur is a bit of a roller coaster. You have, probably in the same day, you can go from a high to a low to a high to a low, you know, intensely. And I want to hear some of the biggest challenges that you faced in this journey from launch to growth.
I mean, name anything. I mean, one of the biggest challenges I'm currently dealing with is knockoffs, and anyone will tell you that I should be flattered, but I'm not. I'm not flattered, and I don't want to deal with it. Yeah, just even just going back to COVID, we were blessed enough that we were an outdoor product, and people were still doing outdoor activities. So we actually were able to maintain. You know, we didn't grow by any means, but we maintained. But then, you know, it was like the dominoes fell after that time, and getting product and the ocean rates were astronomical for shipping, and so we've had a lot of challenges. Product development has had its challenges. Yeah, I mean, growth in itself, cash flow. Name something.
Yeah. And I know an important part of your story involves Publix. Can you tell us a little bit about Publix and how Shark Tank played a role in your ability to get in?
Yes. So during that year, from when we filmed the show, you weren't allowed to talk about it. You're in strict NDAs. I always kind of relate it to the show The Bachelor. Like, The Bachelor is not allowed to run around telling who he chose for his wife. So we weren't allowed to speak about it. We weren't allowed to use it to our advantage. I didn't use it in business meetings saying like, oh, we may or may, and you actually don't know if you're going to air. I have a dear friend, and she didn't air, and she went through the entire process and got a deal. So during that year, I facilitated relationships with Wawa, Publix, and Bed Bath & Beyond. And that was just on my own. That wasn't with the help of partners or the show. So Publix specifically, we love them. We have a great relationship with them. They're a great company. They brought us in. We went over to corporate, and they said, we'll put you in 50 stores, and we'll see how you do. And we had to fight for the placement because I didn't want to be on the Tupperware aisle. I wanted to be in the deli by the subs. And they gave us that chance. Actually, the buyer told me no 3 times. And I posted an ad, and the vice president's son saw the ad and said, why are we not selling these? So I had a meeting went right over the buyer's head. And that story still gives me chills. Yes, yes. So I hope she's doing well wherever she is.
Well done, yeah.
So we got into the 50 stores, and during that time, our episode aired. We had just rolled it out, and they sold out within a week, or maybe even days. And so my new buyer called me and said, he said, we're going to do a full rollout, and we're going to put you in every store.
That's an awesome story, yeah. Especially combined with, yeah. Tim, the same question about challenges.
Well, there's been a few. The initial challenge was really coming up against the South Texas good old boy system. Aloe was dominated by that South Texas, and it was pretty much unknown as an ingredient until Jergens put it in their formula back in 1980. But even today, aloe is viewed as some kind of Latin sidekick thing. You know, it's part of everyday life of people in Florida, Texas, the south of the United States. But so getting in, and so the accounts were very, very tight. Everybody held their cards real close to the chest, you know, and so you had to break into it. And obviously, I'm from New Jersey, you know, but with my Northeast accent, so I didn't fit in that well to that group. So that was a challenge. The other challenge is then when you're in is quality, because aloe vera isn't a USDA ingredient. It's not a food ingredient. It's not even regulated by the FDA. It's under the DSHEA clause, Dietary Supplement Act. So therefore, there's very few specifications. You know, like when you buy milk, there's not a chemical analysis for milk, but there's a USDA inspector making sure that it stays all the way through. There's nothing like that with the dietary supplement industry. They're trying to make it better, but so we, coming from a regular traditional industrial background, I had to slowly make aware of the fact that there's a lot of aloe products out there, raw materials that aren't aloe. You know, that maybe they're just a portion of aloe. And it's still not verifiable that the chemical technology still isn't there to give you a really good quantitative result on the aloe. So transparency was the answer, because that's, you know, because the only way to keep track of something like that, like a food type product, which goes both ways, is to monitor how many leaves you harvest and how much product you sell. Because you would find out in a business at that time that people will be selling all kinds of aloe and they don't even have a factory. Yeah. You know? And because of that, and then my friend in Dominican, who we were buying from his farm for 10 years, wouldn't take the trouble to go organic certified. So I found a place in Guatemala that was organic certified, but was going out of business, of a processing plant. And so that's when we stopped. That's when I bought that. And from there, now we're totally vertically integrated with between we grow it, we manufacture it, we sell it, process it, and back it up. But the biggest challenge at that time was purity, proving that your aloe was pure, because again, there's no hardcore like you get analysis like how much aspirin is in this tablet, how much salicylic acid is in this product. You can run analysis on that. Can't do that with aloe. You do it a little bit, but not a lot. And you can't. That's why we established the DNA testing, barcoding for the aloe. But then again, that only applies to non-pasteurized aloe, because anything that's been pasteurized, the DNA degrades. So there's a lot of challenges on that.
Okay, it sounds like a complex process, and especially if you have a product that you need to educate people that they need it on the.
It's like I say, a lot of times it's the worst of both worlds. It wants to be treated like a chemical specialty, but they want to price like a commodity.
Okay.
And convincing people that, educating them that you have a superior product to everything else on the market. It's more pure.
That's why that's why I really encourage people to come down and visit our processing plant and farm in Guatemala, because to see the scope of it. That just because you have a salesman sitting there saying, "I got all the aloe in the world," does he really?
do what it's supposed to do, yes. Now, there's a common statement about the inventors, not necessarily the entrepreneur. And they don't, if you have the skills for one, you don't necessarily have the skills for the other. Can you react a little bit to that statement and tell us was there anything you had to learn along the way to be able to get to where you're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that everyone is good at everything, and I think one of the biggest challenges that business people overcome is figuring out what it is you're good at, what you're passionate about, and then delegating and finding the right people to work with you. And that's, I mean, I went to school for finance, so I don't need someone to reconcile my monthly statements, but I am not good at being, I'm not a forward salesperson. So
She loves public speaking too.
yeah, no.
Get her up here, yeah.
I don't know how he keeps getting me to do this, but so yeah, just figuring it out and then learning how to delegate.
Perfect, thank you. Tim, how about you?
Well, I think back of that beer commercial when the guy goes, "You're the most interesting man in the world." He goes, "Find out what you don't do well in life, and then don't do that thing." And what I found out was what I had to force myself to is that, especially in the chemical business where there's so many facets to it, you have to have personal contact. And it's a little tougher when we have a lot of millennials at the business, and it's hard to get them off that email tread, because it makes such a difference to have a personal sit down with the people, the head of the lab or the head of marketing of big companies. We sell to mainly about half of our sales are to big companies, like Estee Lauder and things like that. You need to get time with them because it makes such a big difference, and that's what I've learned.
And thank you. And now let's segue a little bit onto resources that are available in the area that were useful to you to start your business or grow it. And conversely, was there anything you wish that was here that you didn't have to be able to get to where you're at today?
I think for us specifically, I mean, we started back in 18. We started in 17 with the patent process, but I didn't know where to start and I didn't know where to look for resources. And so for me, it was more of an education holdup. I didn't know what was possibly even available to me. And then our situation is obviously very specific because by the time we were basically launching the business, we were 3 months old. We had business partners, and then I had everything at my disposal that they had to offer. So specifically for this community, I would have loved to have had a mentor from the beginning, or a group, an entrepreneur, inventors group that I could have been a part of. I didn't know if one existed. I still don't know if one does. If there is, I would love to be a part of it. But yeah, so our situation's a little unique.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Tim?
I think the biggest thing, just on a convenience level, is I wish we had a flight from here to Miami. Because to get to Guatemala, you got to drive all the way to Orlando. Park the car. Then go to Miami. 20-minute flight to Miami, and then the rest of the world is open from Miami. But I can't for the life of me figure out why there's not a flight to Miami here.
Cyrus, take note.
Hey, I got Providence today. Nobody's happy.
Well, thank you. Now, let's talk about the future. What do you see in the future, the coming years? Where's your business headed? How can the community help you get there, if there's anything that we can do?
One of the things that I'm focusing on this year is more of the promo world. So we recently bought a printer, so we're able to print logos on all of our products. We don't just have the SubSafe, that is our OG, but we have 8 products now in the outdoor industry. And so we're just looking on doing promo work here in the community. My goal is to sell. I'm very modest in the fact that, and humble enough to know that I can only take this thing so far, and we need a company like Tupperware or Igloo or Yeti to come in and really take it to the next level. And then after that, I just want to do consulting, and I want to help people bring their ideas to fruition and protect them and manufacture and things like that. So, yeah.
Great. How about you, Tim?
Well, our raw material business is growing largely because it's growing very fast, largely because Mexico, our biggest competitor, it's more and more difficult to get things up from Mexico. And this last trade threat, tariff threat, has only helped us because Guatemala, there's no tariffs there. But Mexico, they don't presently have tariff, but I see the cloud of uncertainty going around the industry. And so we have the availability and the supply to do it. And our expansion locally will be is that my original business platform was that I would get companies' business by helping them with formulation work, because I'm a cosmetic formulation chemist. And so, of course, I do the formulation work for free, but we get our product in their product, our raw material in their product. But a couple of things came up, and we kind of backed into contract filling now for some of those people, because they wanted to, it's very tough for a small company like that sells maybe 10,000 units a month to get manufacturing for them, and let alone get expert formulation help. So I would offer that, and now we're actually doing a lot more formulation work. In fact, 10% of our business now is just to one tattoo company, tattoo aftercare, because one of our products called Tamano oil, which we get from Vanuatu, is famous for healing scars. And a tattoo essentially is just thousands of little scars at first, and so it makes a tattoo brighter and lasts longer and more definitive if you treat the aftercare with that. So we're making a couple of aftercare tattoo products, and we're also making, which is something to do with aloe. Up to this point, they would transfer the stencil onto your skin from the tattoo stencil using just soap, liquid like dish detergent. Yeah. I came up with a version of soap that was not based on surfactants. It's called stencil stuff, and so that's transfer gel, what they call it. And we ship a container of that a month to Germany. Wow. And that's about opportunity. It's a huge business. It's such a subculture that a lot of people don't break into it. But the tattoo or body art business is tremendously big, and it's been relatively untouched because a lot of the tattoo artists think they think of themselves as that, as just artists. They don't want to bother with the mundane stuff about the products involved in it. So, that's where we pick up the ball.
I love how you found a market that is, you would not think immediately tattoos, or tattoo parlors. You would think more directly, sunblock. And so the fact that you identified a new market for the same product, great. Yeah. Now, I want to make sure that the audience has a chance to ask questions. I hopefully one or more of you, Brad, have you gotten? I see Connie with a question.
Find my way there.
Do you need a microphone, Brad, or?
Here you go. Did you need help from banks and investors, or did you pay for it all yourself?
Good question. So the question I'll repeat it for everyone is whether you needed financing through loans or banks, or did you finance this on your own?
Well, no, we didn't. I did it all on my own because I spent very conservatively. And so we grew as the business grew. And in the early years, I always had a backup. I always had a backup because I was always the chemist on the bench at a company like Twan Tropic or stuff like that while I was building the business. So it's kind of, that was my safety valve. But I didn't borrow money to start the business, no.
We obviously borrowed a little money in the beginning. But yeah, my husband and I put a certain amount in to get it to the point where we had a manufactured container full of product. And we did that on our own, and we didn't borrow money. We did take on the investment from the sharks, but we have also grown at a rate that we could afford, and it is oftentimes slower, back to what I was saying, of, you know, eventually selling to a company who can take it to the next level, because we are passionate about remaining debt-free.
Okay. Other questions, Brad? I can throw one. Meanwhile, okay. So there's always making the decision to leave the comfort of and the safety of a job to go on your own. That's a huge leap. Can you talk a little bit about how that played out in your life?
I still had a side hustle until I just physically couldn't anymore. So I was still working, and even today I still do consulting on the side. It's just who I am. I was never going to be scared and not have options, and so taking that, I never really took that leap, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
No. Tim?
Well, there's a chance where there's a time when you have to jump off, you know, with the regular thing, and I did that back in 2004, when I was a partner in a cosmetic manufacturing company in Texas. Yeah, that's always a tricky part, is that jump off. I mean, it's not for everybody working without a net, but it's exciting.
I think that's when so many businesses, what they do wrong too is, and I'll have people come in and they'll be like, well, if I just find an investor, then I can quit my job and it will cover my salary. And I'm like, what? Nobody's going to give you money with that mentality.
Usually, yeah, when you start your own business, you quit a 40-hour job so you can do an 80-hour job, yeah. Brad, do you have one more?
I think that's it.
That's it? Okay. So before we finish, and I don't know what happened to the Thunderbirds. Cyrus, talk to them.
Just like everything else, you gotta warm up before you gotta
A little
stretch
bit, yeah.
before you go.
Uh,
Yeah,
Can't- I do want to showcase something, and if Heather can help me bring down the screen and where is there she is. And because hopefully we made a case for innovation and small businesses and startups in our community, and we see how critical they are. We know that they're going to generate most of the jobs in our community. We know there's a ton of them, and we know that they need help. And we got 2 accounts here. By the way, our third speaker is with us, Joe, just as an entrepreneur. Of course, there's a lot going on in everyone's life. So, these businesses need help, and there's many ways that we can contribute. And you heard about their journeys. And I want to invite you to an event that you have here on the screen. If you see that QR code, we have, let me tell you a little bit the story of this. The Innovation Challenge has existed for 12, 13 years, Connie? Okay. And it was always a competition between higher education institutions in Volusia County. So students went against each other with their innovation. And here you have represented, we have 2 students who won, I think that was the year 2018 or maybe 19, first and second place. We awarded $10,000 for first place, $5,000 for second place. When the founder of this competition decided to retire, the county decided, and wisely, to keep it, to retain it, to keep it alive because of its importance and the impact that it has. And so now the competition is open to the entire community. Anyone from Volusia County can compete in the Volusia Innovation Challenge, and we have at the moment, I think we ended up with almost 40 applicants. Yeah. The ideas are amazing. We have seen anywhere from apps all the way to physical products to services, amazing things. And we're going to be having an event for the final competition. Now they're going through a process. We're going to figure out who are the 6 finalists for the competition. And this QR code will lead you to the registration. And let me say this. There's no reason why everyone in this room should not be there. So all of us should attend that day. It's on March 27th. From 5:30 to 8:30. You don't have to stay for the duration of the event, but you can at least see some of the ideas, and you can identify ways to help. And there'll be a showcase. Everyone who submitted an application will have a chance to showcase their idea to the public, and you are very, very encouraged to come, because if you are here today and this resonated with you and you understand the impact that it has in our community and economic development, you got to be there. Plus, you're going to see amazing ideas, okay? Did I hear a wait? Oh, it's, yeah, and it's, yeah, yes. Thank you, Connie, for clarity. Yeah, so it is free. You know, I'm the kind of guy, when I go to these competitions, my thing is to sit there and I take everyone's idea and I repurpose it in my head, like, oh, if they did this, you know, that would be cool, or I could apply this to my job, or I could. So it's really intellectually stimulating. So I really want all of you to be attending. So please scan it and register and come, okay? And the last thing, Heather, I think it's probably the next slide. Yeah, mark your calendars for the next Q breakfast. Is May 16th, my wife's birthday. So thank you, everyone, for coming.